Hey everyone, this is Mike Coffin back here again for part two of our anti-bullying series. And this time I'm going to talk about Crucible, how we came about, what we do, and what Krav Maga is, and how it can really kind of help you and your children. And so, Crucible was formed about 10 years ago in 2010. And we started out just teaching in small gyms. We also started out with a partnership with Lifetime Fitness and with a few areas. And then we moved into a place in Lakewood down in East Dallas area. And then I started a place in Plano. And I had that for about 5-6 years. And now we're in Allen. And we've been in Allen at this point, as of this recording, about 2.5-3 years. And so we've trained thousands and thousands of students. I'm also on the board of directors for PAVE, which is a nonprofit that deals with raising awareness about sexual violence across the country, in high schools and colleges in particular. And then, of course, we do tons of women's self-defense workshops, and I have other courses where we deal with how to protect people against abductions and kidnapping and rape and all kinds of stuff, right? So this is all within self-defense. And so that's kind of how we got started. And in those years, we've taught a number of younger people, a number of parents as well. And we can see how learning self-defense, especially the way we teach it, has really helped build, self-esteem and things like that. And, one of the big things that's different with Krav Maga and with what we teach is that we're teaching, real self-defense, right? And not to disparage anybody else, but these aren't 1,000-year-old techniques. This is a system developed primarily for militaries and law enforcement, and Secret Service, and people that protect airplanes and things like that. And so the techniques that we teach are useful. They are battlefield tested. They have been used around the world. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of soldiers have used these techniques. And then, of course, it's been adapted for civilian usage. And the great thing about that is we get all that information, all that knowledge about what works and what doesn't work, but also how to teach it to people in a way that they can absorb the information fairly quickly and assimilate it and then start doing it. The idea is, with a normal Krav Maga class, whatever you learn that day, you should be able to use that night. Okay, and when we talk about bullying and when we talk about interactions with people at schools and things like that, there are a couple really important factors. Number one is we have to understand use of force, which again comes from our military and law enforcement background in Krav Maga. When do I use self-defense? When is it appropriate? And how do I do it in such a way that I am able to defend myself but not cross the line into becoming a bully myself, right? The flip side of it is that if somebody is a bully, they have an outlet for it. They can build up their self-esteem, and they really have no desire anymore to be a bully. And so what I've said for years is that if you bring somebody into our program that is being bullied, and that's a wide-ranging sort of name, bullying, right? If you bring somebody in who's being bullied, that they will no longer be bullied because they know the techniques, and they have more self-esteem, more self-confidence, and things like that. On the flip side, if somebody is a bully or happens to be, when they come in, they'll stop being that bully because they now have an outlet for it. They understand the proper use of self-defense, and again, their self-esteem is higher, so they no longer feel the need to be a bully. And that's how we teach the system at the gym, and we've taught thousands and thousands of students, and we've had huge success over the years. And when it comes to teaching kids, the same sort of things cross over, right? And so when we're teaching the anti-bullying workshops, it's as much about communicating with your parents. These are things that are somewhat uncomfortable, so we make them comfortable. Touching other people, what happens if somebody's putting your hands on you, things like that. They're not always the easiest discussion, and it's harder to teach, and it's harder to talk about it in the abstract. Like if you're sitting out at the table and you're talking to someone about it, your child or whoever, that's one thing. That's knowledge, right? But you also have the experience. And so that's something that my instructor, Al, has been really insistent about, and it makes a world of sense that there's two things. You can read about something, you can tell somebody something, but then you actually have to do it. And that's the experience. And that's when we're building that bridge between the parent and the child, is letting them actually experience things together that are real world, that happen, but in a fun and safe environment, okay? And so they get a chance to use these things, and it brings up opportunities for you to have conversations with your child that you otherwise wouldn't. And now you've got a bond, and you also have a common language, okay? So we're gonna build all these different components inside this workshop. And it allows you a safe opportunity to start talking about these things, but also have fun and have games and have built a positive experience with them around the topic of defending themselves and people shouldn't touch you and what to do in certain situations and who to talk to about it and how safe it is to do those things. And we think that that's a really important thing. Statistically speaking, as we talked about in the first video, kids are very hesitant. I was bullied as a kid. I never told my parents, right? It was one of the reasons why when I turned 16, the very first thing I did was drive to the local martial arts center, all right? And so kids don't talk about it with their parents. They don't know how to talk about it. They're embarrassed about it. They feel like they're the only one in the world that has to deal with this. When they get into an environment where everybody's sharing, everybody's talking about this, it's very safe and it's fun, and they understand this is a common problem. I'm not the only one going through this, and now I can talk to my parent. Remember that thing that happened in school is like the thing I learned at the gym, all right? And so you guys have a way to build some bridges. And so I hope that with these workshops that you'll come in, that you'll have a chance to actually interact with your son or daughter about these situations. And then when they go to school and something happens, that they'll be able to relay that information to you. Another part of this is what we generically call third-party protection or bystander intervention. Statistically speaking, most people are not willing or able to intervene into any situation. And that could be as simple as dialing 911 or saying stop or that's not right, something like that. That also takes a level of self-confidence, self-esteem, and knowledge to achieve. And so in these workshops, we're hoping that not only by teaching them how to defend themselves, that we're also teaching them what's right from wrong and giving them the ability to have the words and understanding to step up and say something, at least say something, if something is happening to a friend of theirs or somebody else at school, somebody's being bullied, that they'll know what the proper steps in that situation are. So I think it's useful in a lot of different ways. And you know, in the next video, we're going to go through some of the situations and some of the techniques that we go through.